Hello everyone and welcome back to Central Florida in the beautiful, beautiful Lakeland weather here we're having at the 44th Annual Sun Fun Fly-In International Convention. And I'm Ben Coleman, one of your many hosts for the Florida Aviation Network, coming to you live, streaming in the clear from the Florida Air Museum. And it's always a pleasure to have our folks come bring us some information from the industry and share some very vital information that you might find interesting as well. Well, I certainly find it interesting, and I hope you do too. And we also have Mr. Michael Adams. Mr. Adams, how are you, sir?
Well, I'm fine, and please call me Mike.
Mike, I'd be glad to. And you can call me Ben.
All right.
And we can also call her Mackenzie.
Hi, Mackenzie.
Mackenzie Barber is one of our up-and-coming talents here to help us with these presentations. You work for a small outfit called Avemco.
Yes, I wouldn't necessarily call it small. We're a specialist in the aviation insurance. We've been around since 1961 and specialize in general aviation insurance, private pilots, personal plane owners.
Everybody knows Avemco, and that was very tongue-in-cheek.
Oh, okay, all right. I'll shorten my answers.
You are vice president, so that means you have a lot of responsibility with Avemco.
Yes.
Okay, that's the textbook answer. But Mike, tell us a little bit about Basic Med. I'm curious of how the introduction of basic medical requirements have affected or will affect insurance and insurance rates.
Okay, well, I can speak for Avemco because that's who I underwrite for. We've been following the Basic Med since it first began its movement and gathered the political power to finally become a reality. And what we found from analyzing our claims over time is that the physical impairment of the pilot, the catastrophic loss of consciousness, that really isn't a big cause of the losses. So when the Basic Med program came in, we handle it just like any other FAA accepted medical, be it first class, second class, third class, sport pilot, or now Basic Med. So it really makes no difference to us. We concentrate on, we recommend pilot training because that's more important, I think, in preventing a loss or a claim. Medical emergencies, you do hear about it anecdotally, but it's not a real issue for us. So we've had several of our customers that went from the sports pilot status when that became available. Now they're back to the Basic Med so they can go back and fly the Cherokees, the Skyhawks, 182s, and things like that. Up
to, I believe, what, 6,000 pound gross weight or 6-passenger?
Well, you're asking me an FAA technical question.
No problem.
If it meets the definition, it's not a problem for us.
It's a standard, and actually Basic Med, just like any medical, it's a set of standards that they meet. And the bottom line from you, are they competent and safe to fly an aircraft?
Correct.
And speaking of flying aircraft, Mike, we have you surrounded. We have Mackenzie is just starting her flight training, so she's going to be probably on your books as one of the new startup low-time flight experience pilots.
All right.
And me, on the other hand, I'm older than dirt, been flying for 45 years, and I don't think I have a claim on file with you.
I can go back and check if you're
I'm
really
sure
curious.
you will, now that I've blown my cover. But Mackenzie is just starting up her flight training. How does Avemco look at, and this is really putting you on the spot, how do they look at the startups and the low time experience pilots as opposed to some of the, is there a virtue of getting more flight time and experience without having an accident or an incident or a claim?
Well, we don't want anyone to have an accident or incident or claim because that just kind of ruins your day overall. As far as a new pilot coming in and training, that's terrific. We love them. Probably what you'll get started with if you're going through a flight school is when you get to the stage where you're ready to solo, you ought to consider a non-owned or a renter's insurance policy. Because normally a flight school will set up a policy for their protection, but then you would need one for your liabilities on that. We issue those all day long. We can do it online. We work with a lot of the flight schools for that. Now, what's interesting is whether you'll have a third class medical because you have to start with that. But let's say that you've moved yours to the Basic Med because you've had the medical, you've done the 2-year knowledge thing. For a non-owned or a renter's policy, if you buy the same limits of liability, we're going to charge you exactly the same, with the exception of you'll get some additional credits for some flight training that you had, and we've got some membership credits we can factor in on it. But we like both of you equally, and the non-owned will charge you the same. Now, let's say that you each buy a Skyhawk. I'm going to charge you less because of your pilot experience. We still want you as a customer. We write an awful lot of brand new ab initio students in those types of airplanes on there. And then as you build up time on renewals and all, the credits will start to apply and the premiums will be affected. So there would be a difference between the two. But as far as, let's say in 2 years, you say, I don't want to go through a third-class medical again. I want to take the knowledge course. I'm going to fly under basic med, run that for 4 years until you need to upgrade to a different plane or have to have a second-class medical for a commercial certificate. Then, we're happy to work with you on the basic med. On there, the thing that drives rates on the airplane will be accident, training, and currency. So one of the things that we talk about with the medical system is, one, watch your health. You obviously need to do that. And we promote training. We want you to train early, train often, as if you were voting in the Chicago area. What we found on the training is those that train on an annual basis versus just a flight review every 2 years, or if they upgrade a certificate or rating during the year, you pick up your complex high performance, a tailwheel endorsement, you're less likely to have a loss than someone that only does the flight review every 2 years. And we've got some premium credits that we factor into that will apply to both the owned and the non-owned policy.
Interesting. I tell you, Mike, this and Mackenzie probably, I know when I was starting my training, insurance, furthest thing from my mind, honestly. Now at the sunset of my training, it's the foremost thing in my mind about what I'm going to do to protect what I've developed, what I've learned. And Mackenzie, do you have any thoughts that you'd like to? And how many times do you get a chance to sit right next to the vice president, senior vice president of Avemco? And Avemco, that's big. And all due respect to you, I really have a lot of respect for not only what you do, but what you're responsible for, because it's protecting a lot of people. And that's why, even though you call us customers, and when the biggest time that you need insurance is right after you've had an accident and realize you don't have enough.
Right.
So that's this, and this is where you having a chance to, Mike Adams, and I know that he will remember you. And you have a question, go to Mike, and he will, if he can't answer you directly, he'll put you to one of his agents or one of his folks and help you with your insurance questions. And who knows, you may wind up being a NOAA, Avemco insures an awful lot. She's going in the oceanographic field in aviation. But Mike, is there anything, Mackenzie, you haven't asked a single question.
You keep on talking.
Yeah.
Touche. Touche.
So I don't know too much about insurance. I'm only 16, so I mean I know a little bit more about car insurance. But what would you recommend that a new young pilot do?
Okay, good question. Age 16 isn't an issue. We can actually go as low as age 14 on our non-owned policy because that's when you can start to solo a glider, and that's the intent to pick up the coverage. I really can't make a recommendation in property casualty insurance. I can give you the smart aleck answer and then I'll explain it. And the smart aleck answer is, well, tell me what kind of wreck or accident you want to have, and we'll figure out how much it costs to take care of it. So what we generally say is if you're working with the flight school, they'll generally have some kind of a minimum that they want to see all of their clients carry so that there's a dovetailing of coverage between the non-owned policy and then the commercial policy they carry. So that would be your first baseline on it. As a 16-year-old student, you really don't have many assets yet, I would assume. So at this point, as far as the general liability, you could probably get by with our lowest limit policy. It's a $250,000 total coverage, any one accident. The flight school will probably ask you to carry somewhere around $5,000 of damage for the aircraft itself. So that policy isn't going to run a whole lot of money. Please don't ask me how much it would cost because I'm drawing a blank on that right now. But I can write a policy that goes $1 million liability and goes up to $150,000 hull coverage. And that would cover you in gliders, single engine land, powered aircraft, up to 7 seats, up to 450 horsepower. So if you can find someone who will rent you a plane like that, you'll be covered in that. So whether it's tail wheel, retract, high performance, complex, they all fit into that definition. So I'd say the basic $250,000 policy, $5,000 for the airplane would be good for you. And then as you build more assets and get older and have more responsibilities, you'd want to ratchet that up to cover the assets that you would have and keep you out of trouble.
Do I have time for another question?
Sure.
So you said that you recommend, if you want to have a lower insurance price, to do more certifications and show that you're learning more as you go. What kind of certifications, Ian, did you say? You were saying a tailwheel endorsement, I heard, was one of them. What were some other ones that I could do to help with that?
Excellent question. So let's take your case as a student pilot starting out. You're going to get our basic rates on there. And then let's say that during the course of the year, you pass your private check ride. Well, that automatically qualifies you for a 10% credit, which we can apply midterm to the policy. That'll carry over to the renewal. So let's say that in the renewal, you say, I've now got my private single engine land, less than 200 horsepower. I'm going to get my complex high performance. That's an endorsement. That would get you another 10%. And you go, well, I'm really hustling through this and I'm going to pick up my instrument rating. That would apply to the 10% to say the third year. So what we're really looking for is training that's germane to the type of flying you're doing, and any of the endorsements that would go into your logbook, like the tail wheel, high performance, complex, instrument, multi-engine, seaplane, that would all qualify.
Oh, thank you. That's about all the questions that I have. Thank you so much for that information.
Well, I tell you,
You're
that's
welcome.
great. And Mike, the thing that we can concentrate now is loss of control.
Yes.
Keep those losses and keep those claims down to a minimum. Keep your profits high. They can make your premiums lower. I like low premiums.
Yes.
Mike, thank you so much for your time.
Oh,
this
you're
morning.
welcome. Thank
Mackenzie, spot on. Thank you for
you.
joining
Good
us
to
in
meet you.
this very interesting conversation. And that's going to wrap up this interview. We're going to come back for another exciting interview here at the 44th Sun and Fun International Convention and Fly-In. I'm Ben Coleman, one of your hosts. See you next interview.